Do you think that that was Kane's last chance to win a trophy at Tottenham Hotspur?
I'm very concerned that it is. I'm really, really concerned because I'll be honest here. As much as it will hate and destroy me, he needs to go. He needs to go. He's got the record. This man deserves silverware as a player. This man has given incredible service throughout his career. Never been a problem on the front pages. Always dominating the headlines on the back pages. Never in trouble. You never see him out in the media. You never see him causing trouble. He is given targets. Obviously, he sets his own very high targets, but by the club, do this, do that. And he's always said, if you match my ambitions, well, Harry Kane has delivered every single season. Every single season. Through all the managers, through all the good times and the bad, and has been given false promise after false promise after false promise. I want to see Harry Kane win a trophy. As much as I'd love to see it with Tottenham Hotspur, as much as I'd love to see it, I just can't see it. Like we've just been speaking before with the cup competitions, we're miles away from the league. Let's be serious. We're miles away from the league. If we do get top four next season, can we say we're going to win the Champions League? Probably not. If we're in the Europa League, could we? Could we? But then you got the bigger dilemma as well, as if he does go, who replaces him? But that's a different story because I think he could be gone this summer. I really, really think he could be gone this summer. He could say, and this was obviously the Champions League is still there, but I think this was his last viable chance and serious chance of winning silverware with Tottenham Hotspur.
Jamie, what do you think?
So crazily, I do believe that he will be here and he will sign a new contract. I think that that's something I know that's completely crazy, and I think that's going to happen. I think simply because he wants to stay in the Premier League. I don't think the options are there. I don't think Manchester United's a realistic option for him. I think they will go for someone maybe a younger profile. Then, of course, you look at the fact that Spurs are going to evaluate him something stupid, even though he's going to have 1 year left on his contract. I think they're still going to want like £100 million plus for him. So I don't think he's an option for Manchester United. I don't think he's an option for the other clubs. So I think he's just going to look at it and think he's got that connection now with the fans. He's got that connection here as the club. Just make himself a club legend. And I think for him, that opportunity has passed him by to go to a really big club. So I think he will still be here. But look, we've discussed it. We've said we're not going to win those smaller trophies because the club aren't going to take them seriously enough. And we're not a club that's anywhere near being good enough to win the big trophies. So do I think he's going to win a trophy? No, I don't. But I do think he will be here for a couple of years because I just think he's out of options, unfortunately. And I do believe the club, they're going to know that the situation is going to be pretty horrible in the summer for them, and they cannot afford to lose Harry Kane. I think they're going to do everything possible to keep him at the club. So he will stay. But I think he could go another 4 or 5 years at Spurs and probably won't win anything because of the mentality set by the board.
You mentioned that you can't see him really going to any other team in the Premier League just because it's not a viable option right now. Can you see him potentially going to a team like Newcastle? On the upward trajectory, in a massive need for attacking options. They got to a final, obviously, just a week ago. Do you think that's a viable option for him?
I think it would then depend on whether they're in the Champions League. I think at the moment, kind of the way they are going, I think the last 7 games, they've got 1 win. I think they've only scored 3 goals. So I think at the moment, they're probably not going to finish in the Champions League. So I think that's what it would depend on. But look, that could be a really great opportunity for him to go to a club that, as you said, is going in the right direction. If they were to have up Champions League football, they're going to pay him a lot of money as well to be there. So there is that. I think the other factor as well in terms of him staying, I think he's someone who's going to be very comfortable living where he is. I think we know with a lot of these players, I think a lot of the rubbish ones have stayed because simply they get paid a lot of money. They work in fantastic facilities. They're in London. So I think that's why we've seen a lot of the rubbish players today. And that's something that Harry Kane might look at. And I know it's obviously pretty crazy. He might have bigger ambitions than that, but I think he'd be very comfortable where he is living in London. He's settled. His family is settled there. That might play a factor as well. So it sounds crazy, but I do think Harry Kane, for some crazy reason, will sign a new contract with Spurs.
Jamie, I just want to add to that very quickly. When you said about Manchester United, and it wouldn't be a viable option, the only thing that reminds me of is when Man U were desperate to win the league, they went and bought a 29-year-old Robin van Persie. So they need to go get the striker to get the job done. Now, if Man U, they've got a cup in the bag, they could get into the FA Cup. Hell, they could still win the league. If they need a striker and a 1 year left on his contract, Harry Kane is available. I think if they're doing it for Van Persie, I think they're more than happily doing it for Harry Kane.
Essentially, it'd be interesting to remember. I can't remember what they got Robin van Persie for.
30.
I'm sure it would have been it would have been fairly cheap. We know with Spurs, they're never going to let Harry Kane go for less than 100 million, regardless of his contract situation. So that's maybe why I would say I don't think Man United's going to happen. I think when you're looking at 100 million pounds, I think maybe you'd be better off looking at someone, a younger alternative, a Victor Osimhen at Napoli or someone like that. I think that's what the profile they'd look to. Like I said, with Harry Kane, he's 30 now. Obviously, we know his injury record as well. I think that's going to put clubs off, and he is world class. So I think regardless of that, I think that's going to put clubs off. But,
and also with the Man United thing, I mean, is he really the perfect striker for a Ten Hag system at 30 years old?
I mean, if Weghorst can play in that system, why can't Kane?
Yeah, I mean, is Weghorst really the ideal player?
He's been great
in that system.
He's been great for them.
Is he the ideal player though?
I don't know, but he's been great.
I mean, like if you offered him the chance of signing.
It's interesting because he has almost playing as a number 10, really. I think at times.
Yeah. Kane would be amazing in that role.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think if a Harry Kane becomes available, a lot of teams who weren't even looking start thinking, wait a minute, one of the greatest is available. If we can get this done, we're going to have to try and get this done, aren't they?
Yeah. Very true.
I think majority of my thoughts, I want to believe, I have to believe in what Jamie's saying. You know, he's going to stay. He's going to sign a contract. He's in it for the long haul now. The boat has gone for him moving to a big club. I do want to believe it. I do kind of believe it. But then when I see like him after yesterday's defeat, how fuming he was, and when the more days like yesterday happen, the more I'm like, this guy, like, he's really good. Like, logically, he's going to have to see escalate. Look, we know he's already questioned his future here. We know it for a fact that he was doubtful of his future at Tottenham 18 months ago. So it's only natural that the more what has really changed in terms of how close we are to winning things. Like, obviously we've got Conte and stuff, and we've maybe made moves which are better than where we were at the time under Nuno. But in terms of how close we are to actually winning big things and challenging for serious honours, when we're not that much closer. We're not that much different to where we were back then. And back under Nuno, at that point, we were, I think, 2 years gone. Pochettino, we'd really fallen off a cliff, and now it's like we're a bit directionless again, and that's the worry. Like if Conte leaves again in the summer, is he going to be back where he was 2 years ago? Why wouldn't he? We've been, if especially if we don't win the Champions League and whatever, we would have crashed out again to another Championship team in the FA Cup. Would be another trophy this season. So why wouldn't he logically be turning around and thinking, be back in his mind where he was 2 years ago and thinking, why am I here? Why do I want to carry on? But I do have to hope that the fact that he's couple years older, maybe if we can convince him with another managerial appointment, that to convince him back. But I know that's what I'm thinking. But this is the thing. We laugh because it's true. Like, he should really be looking to leave. Probably at this point, that is the logical step for someone like him, like Van Persie did when he was not, because he left during Arsenal's trophy drought, didn't he? Arsenal were a few years without a trophy. He was getting nearer 30, so he was like, look, I want to leave and actually win something big, and he went and won the Premier League. So, logically, you have to think Kane is probably going to think in a similar way, but. Look, I think a lot is riding on how the season ends. Look, you could laugh about a Champions League run, but if you think about it, when we did get to the final, it was actually a really similar season to this season. In a way, the whole season we weren't really playing well, although we were just about hanging on to top four. But the whole season we were kind of very disjointed the whole season, and we weren't really in the league playing well.
Sissoko in the middle.
We were kind of plugging stopgaps all over the pitch. We were just about getting over the line for top four. We went out early in the cups, and we somehow dragged ourselves to that Champions League final by hook or by crook. And you never know until you're out of that competition what can happen. So you never know. It's been a weird season. We're a weird club, and that was weird that we got to Champions League final that year. So, you look, it's a very similar circumstances to when we got to the Champions League final, but realistically, we're probably not going to win that. And unless we actually get to like a semi-final or something, if we go out in the quarters or round 16 and then we either just miss out on top 4 or just get top 4 even, there's not much for him to sit here and say, especially if Conte leaves and we're directionless again, like, why am I here? And that's got to be the worry for everyone. Do I think this is his last chance of winning a trophy at Tottenham?
Well, clearly not, because we're going all the way in the Champions League.
He's got one more go. We've got one more go at it. I don't know. Look, I think I just think it's all up in the air right now. I think it's impossible to call in terms of what he's thinking until the summer. I think it's still very much up in the air. I think he's seeing how the end of the season plays out, what happens with Conte, and then he'll make his judgment. I don't think he's made up his mind right now, but I think days like yesterday only put it to the forefront of his mind. I'm sure of it.
Well, you know what? If we are going to sell him, you know it's going to rumble on right until the last day of the transfer window in the summer. He'll probably, if he does go, it'll be like on the last day or something. And you never know, maybe another Audi Cup or something is going to be in the offing in the summer or something like that. But in my opinion, I agree. I think Kane should be looking to leave right now. It's just rinse and repeat every season, year on, year out. And do I see it changing next season? I mean, I genuinely believe that if Conte can stay for next season and we were to sign 2 top centre-backs and a goalkeeper, I actually think that we could have a really good season next year. And I think we'd be defensively sound. We know we can score goals. So I actually think if we were just to only sign those 3 players, I know we would need more to make a complete squad and a complete team. But I actually think we would see a much different Tottenham next season. I really do. So, I mean, is there an argument to say maybe wait around till the end of the transfer window to push for that move? Maybe. Are we going to get the players that we actually want? That's another question. We don't know. So I think Kane probably right now, as things stand, does want to leave. But I do think there's still room between now until the end of the transfer window to convince him. What do you think, Brian?
We've grown up, obviously, and hearing our parents and our grandparents talking about famous players that have played in our famous shirt and in the stadium. And obviously the comparison when we're talking Harry Kane is always to Jimmy Greaves, where the 4 of us have only seen this man on video and heard stories from him on and off the pitch from family members, friends, fellow Spurs supporters. Well, we've just seen our version of Jimmy Greaves in Harry Kane. He is the greatest modern-day player we've had. He is our record goal scorer, which we're privileged to have seen. And this guy is he's fundamental to everything, isn't he? He is literally fundamental. I was on a pod on Monday, and I asked the question about, like, if we took it... I asked where will we be in the league if we took his goals out, or his goal contributions this season. And the day before the Spurs-Arsenal game, if they'd taken out just in the Premier League, we'd have been 12th. We'd be 12th without his goal contributions. And that was only up until January. Let's not include what he scored in February. I really want him to stay. But like you said, I would love us to say, right, we're buying 2 centre defenders. We're going to buy the quality that we've kicked the can down the road to the summer and the goalkeeper. But you all know full well I have absolutely no faith whatsoever that will happen. And then you got to wonder if a deal comes in for Harry, let's say at the start of the window, and he turns it down because he wants to see what happens, and then the same shit happens again. Then we're going to have a very unhappy Harry Kane on our side. I want him to submit. I want him to sign a contract. I want him to finish his career at Spurs. I want him to lift a trophy at Spurs. I just can't see it happening, unfortunately.
Yeah, I just think for me the big question surrounding the Harry Kane thing is, we know for a fact 18 months ago he wanted to leave. His headspace was, I need to leave, I need to go. Now we got him to stay. We kept him, but in terms of if he's going to leave, the question mark is how have we convinced him? Can we convince him that we've changed in those 2 years? Have things changed? And if the answer is no, then why wouldn't his headspace go back to where it was?
Do you believe anything has changed in that time?
No.
Nothing. Because to me, I think the club has changed a little bit in that time. And I think since Paratici has come in, I actually see the club going in a bit of a better direction than it was beforehand. When you're looking at the players Paratici has brought in, you're looking at, for the start, I'm not talking about the loan players like Longley and Danjuma. I'm talking about Pedro Porro, Christian Romero, Dejan Kulusevski, Rodrigo Bentancur. You know, you've got players there that are going to be here for a long time, and they're all top players or going to be top players. So I'm looking at the squad right now. I think the state of the squad is poor because of the players hanging over from the Poch area and those kind of players. But I'm looking at, I can see something happening here, and I can see a team forming. And I feel, like I said before, I genuinely believe just 2 top centre-backs and a goalkeeper, and you'll see a much different Tottenham Hotspur next season. So I do think things have slightly changed since that time.
Since 18 months ago, Spurs, even like 10 years ago or even beforehand, we've always had moments where we spent money. We had summers where we spent big on like Darren Bent and David Bentley and all these things. It's all about whether he's convinced that we are going to be in a position to really challenge for big things, and has that changed the direction of the club in the after 2 years of wanting out, especially if Conte leaves this summer, which is not looking unlikely right now. Where are we going as a club? Like, what is the direction? Are we bring back Pochettino and then we're going to start challenging again? Is that what his idea is? So, if he felt that 2 years ago, like, he's been here for a long time, he's never won a trophy. We were 3 years of just kind of in the abyss, and now 2 years down that line, we still haven't won a trophy. We've had another elite manager come and go. Where would his head be like? Oh, I do see these up-and-coming players, and, you know, there is start of a project. Or would it be like, I need to win now, and we're still not going the direction where we're going to be competing? And, like, has enough changed, I guess, is the question. Maybe a bit has changed, but there's enough change for him to say, I'm going to commit my long-term future here.
No, to me, I don't know. Go on, Jamie. What are you saying?
Do you know what, Ben? I think you made a really interesting point about Paratici and whether the club has changed. I think his success rate, obviously, you're going to get some transfers wrong. There are going to be 1 or 2 that you are going to get wrong. But I think generally, he has been pretty successful at Spurs. Some of the players you mentioned there have been really good. And we do look like we are building some sort of team. And we are a couple of players maybe short. And look, I think maybe for a bit of positivity, I think sometimes you know, it can be very difficult to kind of see where the end is. We saw that with Mikel Arteta when he was trying to rebuild his team. You know, there was so many times when he could have been sacked. You know, he should have gone, but, you know, they kind of stuck with him. Obviously, you know, whether Conte is the right man to keep going, you know, to keep building this squad. But I think Paratici seems to be the guy that's in charge of it at the moment. And I think he is building something there. But if you get the right manager, we can do something pretty good. Obviously, you know, I really thought we were going to kick on in the summer, and it didn't happen. And we've seen it end this summers now, where, you know, there has been almost these false dawns, and that's where, as a Spurs fan, I think we are right to be kind of very pessimistic about that. But I think you're right, Ben. I think we have got the foundations there for a good team, but we are some fundamental players short at the moment. And if we do go and address the central defensive issue, the goalkeeper issue in the summer, then I think we are on the right path for success, and we can build something with Harry Kane. But yeah, at the moment, it's obviously very difficult to see that, because we're always very pessimistic as Spurs fans, and rightfully so, probably.
Yeah, but my point is, like, Kane has probably heard we're only a few players away for 10 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that hasn't actually been the case, though, for 10 years.
It has been. At Pochettino, we're only a few players away.
Yeah, but
you know what I mean?
Pochettino was
like,
5-6 years ago.
Huh?
Pochettino
was born in 2014. That's 9 years ago.
With
Exactly.
Pochettino, though, I think we were in a different place as a club. We were at this team
100%.
playing at that small stadium. You know, we weren't consistently getting Champions League football. And yes, look, I think we will spend more money. But, you know, if we have got those competitions, we have got the stadium, we do have a bit more flexibility. So I think as a club, we are in a very different place to where we were under Pochettino. So, yeah, as a bit of positivity, I think as a club, we are in maybe a much better place there. I do think we are on the right track for potentially building a successful team. I said, whether that is with Conte, we don't know yet. But yeah, I think there is a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. But, you know, whether they do go and finally get those final pieces is we'll have to wait and see.
I don't disagree with you, Jamie, that we're in a different place as a club. We're now maybe a bit more able to spend than we were when we were building the stadium. But if I'm just taking it from Harry Kane's point of view, if you're hearing those same excuses year on year on year on year, is there a reason to? Is he now going to start? Is he going to start believing them now? Is now because he's been believing it for so long, and when does it get to a point where he's like, is this ever going to happen? You know what I mean? And is it this summer? That's the big question.
Simeon, it's boy who cried wolf syndrome. It's literally what it is.
That's the worry. And the thing is, it could be that if he takes a little bit more patience, then we are onto something big. But it's whether he's been patient for so long. It's like but then it also puts so much pressure on next season. It's like if we don't win again next season, it's like then is it for sure guaranteed?
Let's
you know
be
what
honest.
I mean?
The board, the way they've acted since. Let's say since Kane broke into the team, really, they don't deserve Kane's trust. They don't deserve Kane's to be more patient. He's been more enough patient with them for way too long. And I completely would understand his position if he would want to leave this summer. But at the end of the day, like I said before, I can actually see something growing here at Tottenham. I can see. When we had Pochettino as the manager, we didn't spend anywhere near enough money, and that was the clear argument from the Spurs fans, and it was very much warranted. I think after Pochettino, even with Pochettino, we started to spend money after getting to the Champions League final, bring in Ndombele, Lo Celso, Ryan Sessegnon. The argument was, all right, we're spending money now, but the recruitment is terrible. The recruitment is absolutely terrible. Then after that, since Paratici has come in, yes, you can argue we can still spend a bit more money, but I think the recruitment is getting better. So I think we have made steps in the right direction. What are you saying, Brian?
It's a tough one. I agree with Paratici. It seems to be we're identifying the players again. I mean, there's no doubt what Kulusevski and Bentancur have brought in. There's no doubt what Romero has brought in. We can see what's coming with Hill up in the air. Then we can talk Galini and all those crap ones that have obviously. I think Paratici can find these, but again, we talk about this, and it's not just about the money. Listen, last summer we were going mad for De Vrij. The club wanted De Vrij. We were linked with De Vrij. We're going to go get De Vrij.
You mean Bastoni?
No, De Vrij as well.
Oh, De Vrij.
But what I'm saying is De Vrij wasn't expensive compared to a Bastoni. You don't have to. I want to see some world-class players or some established trophy-winning, experienced international players coming in to benefit the team. De Vrij instantly improves this team. Instantly. And we know this defence is such a huge issue, but when you're talking about getting these defenders in, if Kane goes, getting defenders in goes down the back burner, and we have to try and find a striker to replace Harry Kane. And we all know that's going to take 2 or 3 players because of what he brings apart from goals. Then we spend that money on the 2 or 3 players. They'll be like, oh, what about these defenders that we desperately need? Yeah. Because we can't defend. Well, now we can't score. So it's like, oh, wait a minute, we'll kick the defenders down to January. Oh, yeah, we'll do that because Daniel Levy says it, so it's going to happen. Paratici can identify the players. We'll pay the money.
Yeah, I think, Brian, if Harry Kane leaves in the summer, we're going to have to start singing "We Can't Defend and We Can't Attack." Daniel Levy's our chairman, something like that.
Yeah, I'll come up with another song, trust me.
Yeah, please.
But that's the problem we're in, isn't it? That's the problem we're in.
Yeah. No, it is. Look, I think we can all argue this until the cows come home in the morning.